has the empathy and the ability to really connect with you, understand what you're going through, and just be there with you for emotional support that carries you through the day.
Welcome everybody to On Air with Chai. I'm your host Brian Strasberg, and today I'm going to be joined by Mordechai Rothman, who's the director of Chai Lifeline Canada, as well as Asaph Benun. Stay tuned for an incredible story from Asaph about his son and how Chai Lifeline was able to help him out. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Air with Chai. I'm Brian Strasberg, one of Chai Lifeline Canada's volunteer coordinators. Joining me is Morty Rothman, director of Chai Lifeline Canada. And as well, our guest today is Asaph Benun. He's one of our Chai Lifeline families. We're going to hear about Asaph's family's, his son, actually, his story, but from Asaph's point of view today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time. We appreciate it. We know it's difficult times to try to coordinate as we had our back and forths, but we're very happy that you were able to join us today.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here too. It's especially that it's the inaugural session and to share the story, and I hope we can do good. Thank you.
Amazing. So let's just begin. How was your son doing now? What?
My son is doing pretty well now. He's 10 years old now, and he still carries a lot of injuries around in his bodies and long-term side effects. But compared to where he was and the immediate life-threatening situation he was under for a prolonged period of time when he was just a baby, it's a it's a blessing, right? It's uncomparable, and we're not in a crisis anymore. So we're very happy and blessed and grateful.
That's phenomenal to hear. You guys aren't in crisis anymore. So for those who aren't familiar with the story, what happened?
Um, so you're talking about the story that happened when he was essentially 6 months old. So he was just a regular baby, nothing remarkable. I mean, of course, he was awesome because he was our baby, but otherwise, nothing remarkable at all until he started to look a bit sluggish, tired when he was about 5 months old, 4 months old. We noticed, but it was kind of ebbs and flows. It wasn't something drastic. It wasn't one day, and but then we noticed that it starts to get more severe. His tiredness, and up to a doctor and his family doctor, who, upon touching him, just with a little bit his tiny little body, she said, "Go to the hospital now." And we go to the hospital and we find out that he has a very rare cancer, infantile leukemia. It's not a regular leukemia. It's only just very few babies, very rare that get it. And it's highly, highly dangerous, very low.
So, Asaf, how? Let me ask you, and you don't mind if I
Yeah,
interrupt. Just
you go for it.
your doctor.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him? Like, how special was that he was able to do that? And do you still have a relationship with him?
Yeah, it's a her, and yes, she's been a doctor for our pediatrician for all our kids, and she was
Excuse me for that.
she's remarkable. No, it's okay. She was remarkable, and she's in how quick and how switched on she was. Just a few touches, and she said, "Run to the hospital. Something isn't right." It took a few more days until we settled into Sick Kids Hospital, and we were given what you call a primary doctor, and that's we didn't know a primary doctor exists. But very soon you understand that there's a lot of secondaries. So and she was a person that took us through half of Gabriel's um, treatment, and then he switched the doctor when things went even worse.
So what goes through your head when your doctor's like, "Hey, you better rush to the hospital just from like touching your kid. You think like, oh my god, this doctor's crazy, or like, oh
Oh,
my god,
That's
what's
something. Yeah, that's. I was gonna ask the exact same question. That's like,
yeah, it's and you guys probably know what what a Jewish pessimist says. Uh, Things can't get any worse. The Jewish optimist says, yes, they can. So I remember it. I remember as if it just happened a second ago. I was very clear for the first half of what was going on that day, of the sequences, and the doctors talking with code. They saying anemic until they say the c word, and and I remember that the second half of the day that I don't remember anything. My until now my brain just switched off, and people tell me, when I saw you over there on that first day, and I said you were there, and I have no recollection. It's I guess my brain entered some kind of a defensive mechanism. So
wow.
yeah, yeah, and it was a situation. I think I was in that state for at least a few weeks of
All
complete.
right, so you're in the hospital and you're there for a number of weeks, and you're struggling to come to terms with this. Now you have a family, right? You have
Yeah,
six other kids. You have a wife. You
yeah.
know, what's happening with all of them? Where are they? What's going on? I'm sure your wife must have just been
Oh yeah, it was a hectic
beside herself.
situation. Yeah, oh yeah, we were both in a state of shock. It was an unbelievable kind of experience, and you're juggling, and there's kids, and what are we doing? There's Gabriel has two older siblings, Libby, who's a couple of years older than him, and Jonah, who's 5 years older than him. And when you trying to juggle it all, you at that point you realize that you cannot juggle it all. You are it's we're just not meant to deal with those kind of situation. It's not at least you don't have the tools. I mean, and it's not
Well,
that.
you I assume you were working right at the time, and you're what
Yeah,
was your and I will say this: I have a relationship. I know Asaph and his wife Nikki quite well for many years now, and I don't recall if Nikki was working at the time or not, but
in the first part of the disease, Nikki quit her work. I tried to stay, but it was what we soon discovered is that he had a 6 months stint at the hospital of intensive treatment, meaning that you, most kids that have cancer, they don't stay in the hospital. They go to the hospital for a little while, they go home, and then they treat most of the treatment is an outpatient. But then you discover that the ones that are in the hospital all the time are there for a reason. Is because they're in a danger all the time. And so we try to juggle work throughout his entire treatment was about 2.5, almost 3 years. Of them, 401 days were inpatient. We counted the inpatient days, 401. So we worked on and off. We try to get in. It's even if you want to work, there's periods that you can't because and Morty, you've been there and you probably remember there was long period of time where it was a crisis for so many months, and it gets to you. It gets to your um, emotionally, physically, in every way possible.
so let me ask you,
I,
how
I
how do you cope with that? Like, what coping mechanisms do you pick up? What kicks in? How do you survive dealing with something like this that you've never had to deal with before? That, God forbid, you ever have to deal with again. But it's kind of like a brand new situation. It's survival mode for you, for your wife, for your other kids, for your Gabriel. It's like what goes through your mind through this whole thing that keeps you going forward?
It's actually a question, and I think I have three things that I can kind of address of how we try to do this. One was both my wife Nikki and I are very action oriented, goal oriented type of jobs that we hold. So we turned it into a job. We turned goals. We had objectives, and we try to follow them. And when we were a bit more, how should I say it? We had a bit more hardened. We were a bit more hardened. Some people are not as hardened, and not their fault. It's a terrible situation. So being hardened helped us a little bit. Be hardened to a certain degree. Another way that we dealt was humor. At a certain point, you realize that it's okay, and nothing is off limits if you have to elevate your mood. I remember somebody brought a gift to Gabriel when he was in the hospital, a pajama that had one of the Nemo character, it's a little crab, forgot the name, and it was all crabs, and I go, oh my God, look at all those cancers. So it's just you just roll around with that, like, because this is your life. You have to develop a little bit of a sense of humor. And the last coping mechanism was quite frankly friends and community, and folks like Morty, High Lifeline, where and I'm trying to explain to people what it means, and sometimes it's hard for me to explain what it means, but I wouldn't be in the same situation I am here today if it wasn't for High Lifeline.
Could you go into more detail about that? What is it exactly that High Lifeline did for you, like people wise? How did Morty help you out? How did case
Well,
management?
Brian, before we get into that, though, I want to understand one thing. So you're saying it was three things that really got you through it. And Brian, I do want to come back to what you're saying, but it was three things that really got you through it. Community, is there an order to that? Community, humor, and being hardened. And I'm curious about the hardened piece, by the way. I want to understand that. What made you hardened? What made you more hardened than Brian or myself?
I don't know if I'm more hardened than Brian or yourself. I just know that both Nikki and I came from a bit more of a hardened background.
Is that just your upbringing, or who you were? You were,
Yeah,
in Israel growing up at that time.
I didn't grow up in a particularly privileged situation, and neither was Nikki. Very modest upbringing, and when sometimes you have to sometimes fend for yourself a little bit more, and you know how to kind of move yourself forward with motivation, and uh, not letting barriers or things that can kind of drive you back do that. And you can sometimes be a bit more hardened, and I don't mean hardened to other people's emotions or feelings or empathy, just kind of hardened to push through the day, determined.
Okay. And okay, so those three things, is that in order for you, or is it just?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's an order. You know what they are? They cannot move without another. They all related. There was all something in it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's, they're each kind of like a trifecta of way of coping. Because part of what I think Brian and I are trying to get out of this podcast is, there's wisdom in all of this. There's a lot of learning that can be taken, and I want to take some of these ideas of people who've been through such unimaginable things, and be able to share that with the world. Maybe it's not their child having cancer, but there's other kinds of tragedies or things that people are dealing with every day.
Right.
And and I think that is that. So I guess my follow up to that, and then Brian, I would love to come back to your question. Would you say that these are kinds of things that you use on a regular basis whenever you're dealing with some kind of a tough situation?
Wow. Yes. Well, High Lifeline is not one, on my everyday, but definitely society's treatment. It was something that we did. We also do it during everyday workplace situations. So yeah,
Do you
yeah.
feel that it changed both of you as people and how you guys go about your day-to-day lives and how you look at situations?
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt, and um,
I mean, how could it not, right? Like,
oh yeah, yeah, but in ways that I didn't expect, in better ways too, right? Not it didn't it for a while it made me very disillusioned and a little bit bitter, but over time it made me, I think, way more understanding and compassionate to other people, and maybe understanding that my bitterness and my um, came maybe from a place of you're looking for yourself, but when you're starting to see that you can, that there's others, and that as much as the situation with Gabriel went was so terrible, and I remember like a couple of years after the treatment, I saw one of his doctors, and she passed by the corner and she said, "Oh my, you're here." I said, "Yeah, yeah," and I kind of said, "We dodged a bullet." I said, "You didn't dodge a bullet. You did an atomic bomb." But then we're the fortunate ones. There were folks who were not as fortunate. For people who lost their child, and people who lost their child are there's no escape. They're mourning for that child forever, and and you see other people, and you become more compassionate. Sometimes you're not the center of the world, and there's other people, and they have uh, nobody's perfect, and they have issues, and they have problems, and they have conditions, and maybe it was kind of you can say divinity, or you can say the universe, you can say whoever gave you a knock on the door and said, you know what, you're actually way more fortunate than you think you are.
yeah, I think that's an incredible thing. It's a tough way to learn that lesson, but that's a powerful lesson.
And it is a power lesson, and we live once, and if we can be a little bit better as people, and hey, I'd like to be a better person but still have my kids with me along the way. But it's even
Well,
better.
some of us might kill our kids, but
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah. Oh, a daily event here.
and it's funny you mentioned that because I have a story with your wife Nikki actually,
Yeah.
who shared I think about this sometimes. She shared with me, um, and then we can get into your question, Brian, because I think it flows really nicely in there. She shared with me once that when Gabriel was diagnosed, she was extremely disillusioned from God in particular. And we don't have to get into some dogmatic discussions here today, but she said one of the things that turned her around to come back to, if you want, I don't remember her exact words. Was it, I don't know if it was forgive or come to a better understanding of God, was the fact that she had this community of people, many of whom came from the Jewish community, and she just felt like those are the kinds of people that are helping us. So I'm gonna have a better appreciation for. I'm gonna take a second look at this God thing. Um,
Wow.
and I don't remember exactly how she said it, but
I,
she said it in those words.
that's amazing. It's just you just triggered. I now remember. Now I remember the words that she said. That along this terrible journey, God will show himself through the actions of many, many people.
Beautiful.
And yeah, and I remember, wow, you remember, good memory for you.
No, these are meaningful conversations that we
Oh
that
yeah.
I get to have, and it's part of what I love, why I love what I get to do every day. And people always ask me questions like, how do you deal with all the sadness? And part of how I deal with it is these meaningful conversations, and I learn a lot. So, but I think that flows right into your comments, Brian. And if you want to come back to that
Yeah.
thought.
But maybe before we go to that comment, since you mentioned God, there's something that I didn't mention for many years, just because I kind of felt that it's kind of a hokey thing to say. But during the worst of the worst of the worst of the times that Gabriel was in the hospital, and he was really, and he started with like a 35% survival rate, then he moved to 20, then he moved to 10, then it was 5, and then it was kind of, we're doing everything we can. When you hear that, it's just, you don't want to hear that. And he was really in a terrible shape. He looked horrible. Everything was just, can't even express it in words. And I remember I was sleeping next to him there's like comfy chairs next to the bed. And I remember just before waking up in the morning, I felt somebody's touching me on the hand. And I'm kind of seeing my father, who passed away many years before. And he just said, it's going to be okay. And that's it. And I woke up completely. And and I know that at that point of time, I was in a very emotionally difficult state. But I know for a fact that, after somebody touches your hand, you still feel the touch.
Yeah.
I still felt it for like a few more seconds, or that kind of, that. And I didn't say it to many people then, because I felt, it sounds so hokey and whatnot. But it probably was, whatever it was, it showed that we do seek that some level of reassurance, divinity assurance that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely not hokey at all. Like I think most of us have had experiences like that in one way or another. You get that sign and that message, and it kind of helps you. It kind of helps bring you forward and bring you through it, and kind of eases you a little bit
Yep.
in a sense. I guess getting back to what my point was before, with the community,
Yeah.
everybody, and how you're saying that it's like without certain types of people and certain things happening and helping you guys out, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Right.
If you're able to kind of go more into detail about that, like with High Lifeline, how they helped you out, what they did for you specifically, were they at the hospital with you,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That's so easy. That's so easy to explain. It's just, first of all, an emotional support with you every day. You are not alone in the trenches. Those trenches can be very, very lonely place. Not everybody can be there. And you have somebody who's there, has the empathy and the ability to really connect with you, understand what you're going through, and just be there with you for emotional support that carries you through the day. And then there's the other aspect, which was keeping our family going. Every Shabbat, clockwork. Every Shabbat, like clockwork, we like our decision. It doesn't matter if Gabriel's in the hospital. Shabbat, together, all 5 of us. Doesn't matter. Next to his bed, we're making it a point. And every Shabbat, clockwork, before Shabbat arrives, the food comes, the food that you don't have time to cook. Who has time to cook? But and everything's in there, from like from electric candles. In the hospital, you're not allowed to light open fire, but there's electric candles to the challah, to the full meal. And we're sitting there on the floor, but we're together. It's incredible to know that one day a week, all five of us were together, even in the toughest time. You can't quantify that value, how important it is for family to be at least one day a week. And then there's, of course, the day-to-day. Who's going to do groceries when one parent is there? You're trying to also put a little work, because you need to finance the operation. So you're trying to put a little work. It's never enough. And somebody's at the hospital, somebody's at home, updating each other, because every day there's dramas. And in the meantime, there's two other kids that need a lot of attention, and they are also. You realize after a while that that the kids are in a terrible crisis, and you don't realize. And it dawns on you, it's not just your crisis. There's two other little people that don't know how to cope with that, and they're in a terrible crisis. I remember our Gabriel's sister. She was tiny. She was 4 or 5, and High Lifeline organized for her to see a therapist, and the therapist says, "You need to know what's going on." I said, what do you mean going on? I asked her about her family, and she says, "I have a mommy, and I have a daddy, and I have a brother, older brother, Jonah." And she goes, "And that's it?" "Yep, that's it." "Don't you have another one?" "Yeah." Yeah, well, he's in hospital, but he's not gonna be there for long. He's probably gonna die very soon. So yeah, she wrote him off. Like literally, she wrote him off like an accountant would say, "This is a loss I can't recover. I'm not even gonna deal with it." She wrote him off. And you have to delicately help her, not only not to write him off. She had every right reason to write him off. He had no chances to survive. If you tell her he will, and he won't, how can she even believe you? How do you do that? And that's where organizations like High Lifeline can get the right resources and the right advice and the right. What do you say? What do you do? What's the right answer to a suggestion?
So I'm curious. What did you do? What did you say to her? Because to me, that's so many of us so often are in situations where we can write people off, or we can write something out, and you get that entrepreneur or somebody who sometimes sees something that no one else saw, and that's going to be the winner. That horse he's going to win, and I'm going to put everything on that guy. But human nature is to write off. And I'm curious, what did they tell you? Because especially when you're so young, kids, they're so real, and they're so, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's no filter.
No, they're cutting.
They just say what it is, right? And they're like, yeah, he's it's 0% chance of making it. He's not going to make it. Yeah. So like that's just what it was. And you as a father, you believe it's going to happen because you want to hold on to everything. So how do you give that to your kid? I'm curious.
Actually, we explained to Libby what he's about to undergo, and we had to explain to her that he has a bad kind of blood, that it's not a good working blood, and what we need to do is to take out that blood and put instead of that one a good one. And we brought actually the bone marrow transplant doctor to kind of say it to her, and because if it comes not from her parents, of course it has way more credibility. And he said it to her in a very simple language. That's what we're gonna do. And again, as you said, for kids who are very, clear cut. Oh, you take the old, you put the new. Okay, yeah. And at that point, she had hope, because I couldn't tell her, it's gonna live. I can only tell her it's gonna be okay. I don't know if it's gonna live. We never knew if it's gonna live, but you can at least say we need to hold on to hope. We need to really have that right attitude for us to continue. So of course, in little words, in attitude, we also had to be a bit more careful not to show desperation in front of the kids, but to demonstrate the right kind of behavior.
So that's an interesting leadership quality, right? Like, I know you're a high level businessman as well, and I'm curious, like, when everything's falling apart around you, and in your case, the worst thing imaginable is happening, you still have to put on that straight face and believe my kid's going to make it. And, it's a truly admirable quality. But how do you do that? How do you put on your pants in the morning and keep going when it looks like everything is against you?
We try to do the things we know best, things that kind of fall in areas of comfort that are productive. Even though we knew it's really bad, we said, well, let's do, if all the odds are against us, let's try at least accumulate the little odds as much as we can to counter that. One thing I remember I was doing is I created a medical sheet that I would track everything, all my concerns overnight to this morning, and every doctor around I would take that medical sheet that was branded with the whole Gabriel kind of theme. Here's a list for the day. And every morning, get up at 6 o'clock, record everything, give it to them. There was a full, we had a medical board on the room, and we ensured everything was recorded. And we tried to be as involved in understanding of the treatment as possible, because the more you are involved in understanding, the more you can be the supportive to your kids. And if you know how to play nice with the doctors, and High Lifeline had a role with that, they will listen to you way more carefully and provide you with potential opportunities to influence the treatment to get your kids out of a very, very difficult spots.
Did you find you had to do a lot of advocacy at that point? Or were you kind of just going along with what the doctors were recommending? Or
You do advocacy, when you do advocacy in a hospital, you have to be very careful. If you're going to do too much of that, you might be crying wolf. So you really got to think it through. What am I going to deliver today that is going to actually have an impact, and how am I going to do it? So at the how, first thing every morning, I think it was Rifki from High Lifeline would deliver us a big box of Danishes. Those Danishes would be sliced into quarters from Gabriel and would go to the doctors on their round. Be nice, and everybody else can enjoy it. My belly would not. Be nice all the time. Be nice. That's rule number one. Rule number two is if you want to be advocate and participating in the medical treatment, do your homework. Do your home, not 2 minutes on your iPhone. Really do your homework. at one of the junctures where Gabriel was actually fighting three different conditions. He was fighting cancer, the original cancer, an additional blood disorder that just landed on him from nowhere that requires also the same type of treatment or very similar treatment, and a fungal infection. A treatment against one would make the other one more aggressive and could potentially kill him. That's really when you see doctors are sitting in massive meetings. What are we going to do? Treating one will make the one worse, and we're trying to stabilize between all three. And I went down and I looked at the treatment protocols for all three medications, and I sat down with Excel sheets for hours at nights and tried to play with the protocols. And I came in the morning and I said, look, I am not a doctor. You know that. But I was playing around with the protocol on this Excel sheet. Would you mind just giving it a look? I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm asking you to give it a look. The credibility that we built before for being nice and always collaborating and always doing, working with the doctors. The doctor took that information and went to his office or what have you, and came back after a while and said, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Wow. So it sounds like you did like three things. You really you focused on some small wins. To when the things seemed down, when the chips seemed out, you focused on some small wins. You really did your homework. You analyzed, and then you played politics. You played nice.
You have.
And once you did that, you were able to take some of that analysis, and it kind of seems like one plays into another, because being in a good mindset of focusing on those small wins allowed you to put yourself in a place with the analysis, and the analysis was only taken seriously because you were in a good mindset and you were able to play the politics with the doctors. And in the end, arguably, that might have saved your child's life. Not to say that it wouldn't have happened otherwise, but arguably that could have saved your child's life, which is, it's pretty incredible if you think about it in those terms.
It is that, and that's what I'm saying. We all, each one of us has some skill sets. Each one of us has some skill sets. That was a bit more my skill set. Somebody can bake good cake. Somebody can clean like nobody's business. Everybody knows that to do something. Everybody has some inclination to do something really, really well. I didn't have other skills, but I had those skills. So I used those skills. And yeah, it definitely, we do what we can to help our kids, right? And because we don't want to feel that we haven't done everything if it's the worst case scenario that happens. So yeah, it is, that's one thing that all his records, all his medical record, we kept them meticulous. We knew exactly what was going on. We have notebooks. I can tell you exactly what were his blood parameters on a certain day in a certain month in a certain protocol. I know what happened that day. It's all recorded, everything, because that's what we just know. We know how to do that. So that's what we're gonna do. My wife is an auditor, so we audited.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, and I think I might have interrupted you again, Brian, and I apologize for that again. But you're talking about, the first 6 months being in the hospital and juggling and really not understand, I want to hear a little bit more about that. And what was that like, not just for you, but for your whole family? Like, how was that? How do you think that was for your daughter and your son, seeing the parents half the time, and for you as a father not being able to be there half the time? I mean, it's a challenging thing.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's
And excuse me if you don't want to go here. Feel you don't.
No,
you can just totally skip it.
I think I think it's important because you're walking around all day long with a pit in your stomach, and you're waking numerous times during the night with essentially reliving the day, because that's what our brain is kind of trying to do, reconcile the day. And it's haunting you. It's every thought you take, everything you do. It's not something that is just, oh, I'll get back to it later. It's a constant living. And I would say the first 6 months um, taught us a lot of skills, and we moved through them, but we didn't even know how long it's going to be. At that point, we didn't know that it's going to be much longer. But moving around with the kids, and schools and daycares, and dropping them off and dropping them on, and who are they with now? And both Nikki and my family don't live here, but every once in a while, a mother would come, or her father, or my stepmom. So somebody would come for a visit to help us around, and it's a whirlwind. It's a total whirlwind, but at the same time, there was always a highlight person hanging around. The kids had a big brother, big sisters. So your life changed. You, at the moment, you don't think about it. Right now, I say I don't know how we did it, but at the moment, you work on autopilot.
Was there a point where you just thought nothing was going to work and you guys were just ready to throw in the towel kind of thing, or it was just fighting the whole way through and just doing everything you possibly could do to make sure you got the best outcome? Because by the sounds of it, I mean, with leukemia, and then all of a sudden you have something else on top with the blood issues. It's like one thing on top of the other, stacking on top of another. So it's like kind of, you got a trifecta of things hitting you right.
Oh yeah. I think when the trifecta thing hit him, we were in emergency mode. I didn't think of it will work or not work, or if we give up the towel. It was, let's fight it all out. In the middle, so Gabriel had 6 months of treatment, then he went home for about a year, less than a year, sorry, like 6 months or so. I can't forget it. I can't remember the timelines right now, but essentially, 99 days before end of treatment, we came to the hospital, and there was a big sign that said 99, and all the nurses and us, we stand around it, and we went to the doctor's office, and the doctor says, okay, we're starting now. You have 3 months left for the treatment, and you need to start learning how to live without cancer. We know it got to you. You're there. But you need to heal you. There's a lot of healing that's going to have to happen in those last 3 months of chemo that he has. But we're starting the countdown. This is it. You need to move to the future now. He did the treatment of the day. Just before we're about to leave, they're calling us into they said, oh, don't leave yet. No, but we always leave like around that. No, don't leave. Why shouldn't we do that? And they were kind of evasive. And when they were becoming evasive, if you kind of get your wits with you, you say, okay, you're not evasive. What's going on? I marched to the doctor's office just to see, let's get the show on the road. We want to go home. And the face said it all. Your son relapsed, and the chances are now terrible. So from the heights of exhilaration, you need to learn how to live after cancer. You fall into, there's no way around saying it, you fall into depths of despair. It's a punch in the belly. And so there was definitely a few hours where I kind of saw it all going down. But the Sunday after, there was a High Lifeline event in some kind of a theme park. And we said, he's starting treatment again on Monday. He's going back to the hospital. We don't know if let's take him to the theme park, go the carousels and whatnot. And we spent the day in the carousel, and we just decided to be happy that day. We made a decision. We're going to be happy today because he's out of the hospital, and he still didn't enter that aggressive treatment again. So he feels good. He doesn't know that he relapsed. He has no idea. He doesn't care. It's get on the train, get on the carousel, and we decided to have fun and to kind of put the fists up in the air and get back into the ring.
I love that. I love that idea that you chose to be happy. And this is like, honestly, somebody at that time, you had every reason to not to choose that. But for that day you chose it. It's a pretty powerful thing if you think about it. You could be in the depths of despair in the worst situation imaginable. You know what's coming. Gabriel didn't know what was coming, but you knew what was coming, and you still chose happiness.
Yes, but at the same time, High Lifeline didn't book that event for us that day. It was booked for everybody. But it was there, and just think on that day what that meant to us. We came out of the house and we did something that was just so much fun for everyone. We decided to be happy, but the opportunity was right in front of us. Come, there's a theme park day. Otherwise, we would have stayed at home, pick up the phone, mope, not move. But no, they said, you can be here at home moping or come over. There's no lineup for those choo-choo trains. The kid can go right on top. You go. So there's
I like that. I like that because I'll get the question. I get the question as High Lifeline sometimes. Like, why do we need to do? Why do the kid need to go to the front of the line? Like, why do they need these special treatments? And why do they need this special thing or that special thing? And I think that really speaks to that that day being able to go and just feel like super special. It must have made all the difference in the world to your family.
Yeah, it was the one day. It was Sunday, and at that indoor theme park, and the next day we were back in, battle mode. But we had a day. We had an amazing day, and so we asked, "What did High Lifeline did for you? How do you even describe what that day means? How do you put value? How do you put emotional value, strength value, the fists up in the air value, the will to continue, to show the right attitude that will enable you to talk with the doctors? It's all together. These are the things that make it happen. So, yeah.
That's incredible. That's how old was he when he relapsed?
He was just over two. He was
Over two.
Yeah, he was 2 years and 2 months.
How is his body holding up during all this?
Not well. He lost his ability to walk. I remember the first time that he walked. Again, it's like, okay, I'm not making it up. He was a year and a half. Usually, kids, they start walking around the age of 1, a little bit less, a little bit later. For him, it took a year and a half. And it was when High Lifeline sent us to a small resort up north, and there was a rug on the floor as opposed to hardwood floor, so it's easier for babies to walk.
Yep.
He was very fragile, very thin. His bones were more brittle because of chemotherapy, so he kind of tentative, but he did it. That was his first walk. Sorry, I forgot the question.
No, I was just wondering how his body
Oh,
he kind of got through it all. Because I mean, at that age, the body's so young, it's so fragile. I mean,
very, very bad. It was very bad. He lost his ability to walk so many times, and and then you have to learn all over again. You learn how to walk. So I think he learned to walk 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what that's like as a father to,
Yeah.
it sounds like you've had to deal with just a lot, so many ups and downs, like things that we all take for granted. Like my kids learned to walk, and maybe one of them, if I recall correctly, she struggled a bit and was a little bit older when she started walking. But once she did it, and that was it. She's walking, and I don't have to think twice about teaching her that or making sure she can do that. And I can't imagine what that's like as a father to have to reteach your son 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, there's definitely that, but also his body got hit and hit and hit so much that when I said that he has these carrying injuries, he's carrying injuries all over his body. His kidneys are not in a good shape. His he would not grow if he doesn't get a shot every night. So right now, I mean, years after, to grow, he gets a shot every night.
So even today, he's affected by this. And how
Oh,
old is he now?
he's over 10. Yeah, he's
So it's 8 years later. He still has to deal with certain effects of this.
oh, no doubt he's getting a shot every night. He's getting a lot of checkups. He's getting his kidneys are in a very fragile situation. Just it was 3 years ago. He had to go through a kidney operation. It's they found a growth in the middle of his kidney, so they had to. It's sorry, in the middle of his good kidney. Of course, the bad kidney is nothing happened to it. The good kidney got a growth in the middle of the kidney, and there was very little options. It's actually look at this. Tell me, High Lifeline is not involved in one aspect or another. He was in Camp Simcha, the High Lifeline camp in the Catskills, having the time of his life. They said, and then the doctor said, "We need him here in 2 days. He's entering an operation. We found a way to save his kidney and to do it like without cutting the kidney. We can find a way to get it out. Sorry, not to get it out, but to destroy it. And it's the first time we're going to do it in the hospital, but we need him here in 2 days because the whole team is here." Wow. He's in the Catskills. One phone call to High Lifeline. A plane brings him over to Niagara. I drive over the border, pick him up, get him to the hospital. Boom. It's all got done. So he suffers all those things. But, when you have somebody like High Lifeline like that, just think of every interaction. You ask me a story and I bring you something that we were involved, so you can see how this is not orchestrated, this trio, what we're having. I didn't know what you're going to ask.
You know what? I forgot about that story where we had to fly him. I remember 2 days. Those were some.
That's amazing.
Some crazy stuff. Yeah.
And I'm getting texts from there was a pilot and a medic in a plane that is smaller than a Honda Fit. It's a tiny little plane that just has to go, and so it flies very close to the ground. So they text you where they are at every moment. They say, we're here, we're landing. Where are you driving? It's like a car just flying in the air. Brought him, boom, hospital.
It's amazing.
I know. It's just.
So I want to ask, now that he's 10, everyone is more aware of what he went through and everything. I actually got 2 questions. The first one, I guess, is what are his memories of going through all of this? How did it affect him? And the other question is, now that he's older and everyone is more aware of it, what's the family dynamic like now?
Right. I don't know what memory. He's for quite a while after the treatment, even when he was released home, because he received a lot of blood transfusions, his iron was very high in his body. He would get a blood transfusion every day, and when the blood iron is too high, it doesn't turn into an Iron Man. It can lead to serious medical conditions that are bad for you. So the way to reduce high blood iron is very simple.
Oh,
You
boy.
take blood back.
I
You
know
go
that.
there. You go. So you go every 3 weeks, and they take blood. And he has some memories of that period after. So when you talk to him about time in the hospital, remember those things. I don't think he remembers really what happened. He knows what happened, but he would not talk about it. So every time I ask him, he's going to change the topic. He doesn't want to talk about it. So definitely something is there. He's because he went under the knife so many times. He has a lot of scars. And I guess it's because he's 10 and at that age, he doesn't want people to see his millions of scars, right? You know, tell him in the future he won't care about it as much, and we know he won't care about it as much in the future. So we just let it go. The dynamics, um, we're not the quiet ones. We are loud, uh, very loud family. There's a whole lot of energy here, and he's not missing a beat. He's right there. He's Maury knows him. He's not a quiet kid. He's not. He's getting.
No, I heard some great stories about him at camp over the years. You know, where's Gabriel? Oh, he's in the game room.
Oh yeah.
4 a.m. Where's Gabriel? He's in the game room, just running off to the game room whenever he gets a shot.
We have to call it. Get him out of the game room. He's definitely he has a boss mentality. He's very much of a leader in a situation. He likes to lead, but he's also a very compassionate kid. He's loving other kids. He doesn't you know he's a good kid. He's a good kid, and the other ones they're also good kids. You know, they're a bit Michigan. What are you gonna do? You know.
Well, I do want to end on a bit of a high note.
Yeah.
No, I would want to talk about just you know, how's he doing now? How's your family now? I want to hear a little bit about that, and I also want to hear, you mentioned it earlier on because you said like, oh, the doctor said like you're going to have to learn to live without cancer and what that's like, and you know, so maybe could you talk a little bit about the transition to back to normal life, and then
Right.
you know, where's everybody today? How's everybody doing?
Um, Definitely, Gabriel is doing much better. He's also his sense of humor is good. You know, he was showing in one day in kindergarten. I remember an album of his life, and he showed himself as you know, the kid with the chemo head, and he's kind of pointing to his picture, and he points to the whole crowd. He's pointing at me like you, pointing at me, right? Because of this beautiful thing. So he has a sense of humor. He's funny. He is really funny. He has phenomenal vocabulary. He expresses himself. He's, you know, when kind of tying it to the beginning of the conversation, we're fortunate. We are so fortunate. We're so happy that the the five of us are here. You know, we're still it. You know, we have our issues like every families. Everybody's arguing and battling, and everybody has something to say and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we're family and we're together, and it's really very important for us. Um, I think I forgot what was the second question. Um,
I talked about the transition and then kind of where you are today.
Definitely impacted in some way. We all have our kind of post-traumatic, you know, syndromes. The trauma is there. You can't take the trauma away from it. You know, when I get a call and it says sick kids on the phone, I my brain knows. Oh, it's because they just got your medication kitty. My heart skips a beat. It, it's the head says one thing, the body said one thing, but the transition on the day to day, it's good. We while we always know, I think you have to accept you got impacted, and embrace it, but also find other ways to kind of move along, see the bright side. There's a whole lot of bright side. Just think what we want. We want appreciation for life. We want appreciation for each other. Uh, we want the understanding of priorities, of what is the real priority, beyond your everyday little hustle and the little bickering that happens in every family. That's so not important. You continue to bicker, but it doesn't take the same magnitude. It doesn't have the same effect. You, I'd say we're happy. I definitely say we're happy. And I think I mentioned in the beginning, we were blessed.
Well, I love that idea of, we won. We won.
Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of people would look at their child being diagnosed and say, "Hey, we won." That speaks to you, who you are, Asaph, and your
Oh,
family, and it's a powerful story. And I think we have, I could probably sit here for another 2 hours and get, just take so many lessons here, and I think we're gonna have to cut it short. But
yeah,
maybe we'll talk again sometime. And
I just want to ask one more question, if it's okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what is one piece of advice you'd give to a father or parents that are going through something similar or the same thing?
One, try to enjoy the day. Try to enjoy the day. You don't know if you're gonna have it tomorrow. Nobody knows. Even when we're at the best of health, the best of health. All of us here, we don't know what's gonna happen a minute from now. No, there's no reassurances. Be happy, and especially when if your child is in a hospital and they're going through a terrible time, tenfold more reasons to be happy that day, because that day is what you have today. Be happy today. Anything you can do to be happy on that day is a mitzvah, because I think if there's one thing that we need to be in his life is to try to have our wellness, and happiness can help us. You can't be happy every minute. I understand sometimes you have to force yourself to be happy, but it will help you. It will help you. That even if you force it, just it will push you maybe over that little extra hump that you needed, over that 0.5%. So that would be my advice. Just try to be happy that day with your kids, and I wish I would do it every more, even today. So
Amazing.
okay, well, thank you very much, Asaph, and on behalf of Chai Lifeline, we truly appreciate your time. And
oh,
Brian, this is I'm really loving and enjoying this.
Me too. Thank you.
And
No,
thanks
this
for
much fun. Thank you so much, and yeah, I love you guys. You know that.
this is amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for everything you just gave us. It's just you put your heart out there, and we couldn't thank you enough, honestly.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Morty. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Asaph, for joining us today and giving us your time and allowing the listeners to hear yours and Gabriel's incredible story. From finding out about the diagnosis, acting as quickly as possible, following gut instincts, and even getting involved in your son's treatment to the point where you very well may have saved your son's life. There's so many lessons to take away from this story. One that stood out is how to treat the staff that are caring for your loved ones. Will reflect greatly with how they treat you and how they listen to you. You were so involved from day one in treating the staff with such respect that when you approached the doctor with your idea, he looked it over and went with it. If you treated them any other way, they may not have taken you seriously. So always treat the medical team, both doctors and nurses, with respect, and always be involved as much as possible. Thank you so much again for sharing your story with us, and thank you to the listeners for taking the time to listen to Asaph's story and for joining us today. On Air with Chai is a Chai Lifeline Canada project produced by myself, Brian Strasberg, hosted by myself and the Chai Lifeline Canada Executive Director, Mordechai Rothman. Guests are booked by Orly Davis, and graphic design is done by Candace Elper. On Air with Chai is edited by myself, and the music is provided by Music Unlimited at pixabay.com. To learn more about Chai Lifeline and how you can help us, please visit our website at chailifelinecanada.org.